What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of the 5 Takeaways, where we take a look at the last game and see what 5 things we can take away from it. Usually trying to put a positive spin on things, but we'll see how it goes today. Starting off with number 1, and that is 10 in a row.
And it's our 10th win in a row. No, unfortunately, that isn't what it means. It's the 10th time we have conceded the first goal in a match. So the 10th time in a row Tottenham have been trailing. And not only that, it's also the 7th consecutive league game Tottenham have conceded 2 or more goals. So our defence has been really leaking over the past few months, and the trend of conceding first is still there. And even though it's after the World Cup, and even though we were at home to Aston Villa side with a new manager, still conceding the first goal. Wasn't in the first half at this time, but
just
still
after.
still went 1-0. Exactly what. It didn't take long in the second half, did it?
No, it didn't. And it's hard to watch really week in, week out. When you're looking at Antonio Conte, who's a defensive first manager, you saw last season how we really got to grips with our defence, and we weren't conceding too many goals at all. Even in the beginning of the start of this season, we weren't conceding too many goals at all. It's just not good enough from everyone involved, from Antonio Conte, from the players. And we've spoken about who the main problem is time and time again, but it's just not good enough, and it's really hard to watch. So hopefully we can turn it around at some point soon, but we're not in the market for any centre-backs, so I dread to think what does happen for the remainder of the season. But anyway, let's get on to takeaway number 2, and that is error-prone.
And according to official Premier League statistics, Spurs have conceded 5 goals directly from player mistakes this season, which is the highest total in the Premier League. And even more worryingly is Hugo Lloris accounts for 3 of those errors, which is quite a worrying statistic, and shows that maybe the errors are starting to pile in now for Hugo Lloris. But in terms of errors just in general, the fact that we've conceded the most this season isn't totally surprised, but I remember under Jose or something similar as well. Defenders making constant mistakes and putting Tottenham under pressure, and it seems to have continued. And I think the 3 errors must be obviously yesterday, probably against Arsenal. I'm trying to think. I think the other might have been Newcastle as well.
Yeah, and the other 2 probably Eric Dyer, right?
Dyer against Liverpool, and who's the other one? I'm trying to remember. Can't remember off the top of my head. Anyway,
it's again, like I said, for the first thing, it's not good enough. It's not good enough. We need upgrades in these areas of the pitch consistently, time and time again. I think Lloris is nearing the end of his time at Tottenham Hotspur. I'd be surprised if he's our goalkeeper next season. Well, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, judging by how quickly it takes us to replace players. But I think his time at Tottenham is coming to an end, or it should be coming to an end. And it's sad to see, to be honest, because such a good servant to the club, such a good keeper, but these errors are really costing us. And it's interesting you talk about Jose Mourinho, because that's what I was saying on the live stream earlier today, that it seems very similar to the end of the Jose Mourinho era right now at the moment, with a lot of errors, a lot of stupid goals conceded. And once we do go down, this hasn't happened consistently, but definitely it happened against Aston Villa when he did concede. Heads just started to drop and we couldn't find a way back in the game. And when that starts happening, the writing's on the wall a little bit.
Yeah, but it's very similar defensive players that we had under Jose. Obviously not completely the same, but a lot of them are the same players, and it seems to be the same players making the mistakes. So yeah. It's really disappointing, and this is what we've been calling for, new defenders, but same players and making the same mistakes.
Exactly. Different manager, same players once again. Let's move on to number 3, and that is lacking creativity.
Conte was talking about how we don't have too many creative players in our squad and in our team, and yesterday that was on full display. It was actually our least creative statistically anyway performance of the season. In terms of key passes, we had 5 key passes throughout the whole 90 minutes, which is the lowest total we've had in any game this season. And in terms of shot creating actions, we only had 11, which is also our lowest total of the season. So we really saw our Spurs' lack of creation was there for all to see yesterday, and it was our worst performance on that on that side of the season. It was really hard to watch at times.
Yeah, it was. And when your only creative players are Harry Kane, when he needs to create stuff for himself pretty much, when Heung-min Son's completely off the boil, you know you're in trouble. And both of them put in a tragic display yesterday, Sonny and Kane. And Kulusevski was obviously missing through injury, which we'll get onto in a second. But there's just no creative players in this team whatsoever. No creative central midfielders we have in this team. When you look at Bissouma, Højbjerg, Skip, Pape Matar, who are all the central midfielders in the team yesterday, all defensive-minded players first. The players that we've got to come in through injury, Bentancur, not really a creative player. So where's the creative? Where's our creative now coming from? It's not coming from anywhere. We need to buy someone in the transfer window. And this is why me and you were calling for Eriksen so much in the summer. A free transfer, get it done, sign him up to a 2-3 year deal. You're not going to get a better player than that in the transfer market for that price. So we are failing on creating chances because of our lack of movement in the transfer window once again. And that's the facts of the matter. Let's move on to number 4, and that is missing Kulusevski.
Yeah, and talking about lack of creation and players missing, obviously Kulusevski is a big part of that. And there was some stats flying around yesterday of our results with and without Kulusevski. And here's how they read. Without Kulusevski starting, we have played 8, lost 4. We score 1.4 goals per game and we get 1.3 points per game. When Kulusevski does start, played 8, haven't lost any. Goals per game 2.8, so nearly 3 goals per game, and points per game 2.3. So pretty much winning majority of games when he starts. So it just goes to show what a miss he is when he's not on the pitch and how big he's become for this team, how important he's become. And you think about even like in the last game when we played Leeds for the World Cup, like when he obviously, that was one of his first starts back from injury, and you saw what a difference he made to that front line. And like even that assist for Bentancur right at the end, like what player in the squad do we have who's capable of that kind of assist? We just don't. And he is so imperative now to our creativity, and it just goes to show how much we miss it when he's not there.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. And now people might start to realise why we rave about him so much, because he's just so vital, so important to this team. The only player, apart from Harry Kane, that can actually create something in this team, or on current form anyway. And we need him back as soon as possible. And it was a massive, massive loss not to have him against Aston Villa. I genuinely believe that if we had Kulusevski, we would have got points out of that game, whether it be a draw or a win.
We definitely would have scored, I think.
Yeah.
And I think as well with Kulusevski, what the difference as well with him, well, not only creation, which is true, but because he's a player who's got really good upper body strength, but he's like a forward player who's good at dribbling. When he's in those tight spaces and he's close to players, he can wriggle past players in those tight spaces and hold them off with his strength. Whereas I feel like players like Son and like Bryan Hill, as soon as players get near to them, they struggle to maintain the ball, whereas Kulusevski is very good in those tight spaces.
Physically dominant.
And exactly, and that's why teams, even when they're sitting deep against us, when we have Kulusevski, struggle a bit more because of that upper body strength, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Let's move on to the 5th and final takeaway. Would prefer not to be honest, but it doesn't get easier.
Yeah, and obviously Spurs now 5th in the table, outside the top 4 for the first time probably since, I don't know, I think we've been top 4 for the whole season, haven't we?
Pretty much, yeah.
Pretty much. So far with outside top 4 for the first time in a while. But it doesn't get any easier. Obviously, next game we've got Palace away, which is one of the hard, it is a very tough game. We haven't won there since 2018. Then we got Arsenal at home, then we got Man City twice coming up, and we got a trip to Milan in the not too distant future. So
in between the 2 City games, we've got to go to Craven Cottage as well. And Fulham playing really well at the moment.
So we do have a really, really tough running coming in, and if we don't get our act together, who knows where we're going to be by the end of it? And it's going to be difficult.
In a month from now, we can be talking about being out of sight of the top 4 and also out of the Champions League.
If we don't, we need to get our act together really quickly.
Yeah, difficult. I mean, I'm really not looking forward to those 10 days where we have Arsenal, Man City twice and Fulham away.
How are we going to cope with all that? I just don't know how the squad's going to cope.
We need investment in January, and we need it early.
But even if we get it, it's not going to be ready in time. Like if we sign a player, they're really going to be ready in time for those games. You know what I mean?
We need players. We need to sign players that are ready to just step in straight away. That's the facts of the matter. That's what Conte wants. That's what we all want, and that's what we desperately need.
Even like Kulusevski and Bentancur, it took him a few games to bed in, you know what I mean? I mean, not actually Kulu, as soon as he started, he was amazing, but it took him like a few games. He had to come off the bench a few times, you know what I mean?
He came off the bench in that Brighton game, I think it was. Then he started the next game against Man City.
Brighton, Southampton, he came off the bench.
And then he started against Man City, and then history is history. So, I mean, if we can look, that's the best case scenario, pretty much, bringing in a player. And look, we've seen players come in and hit the ground running from the off before. It doesn't need to take that long to bed them in. If we can buy players ready-made, then they can come in and make a difference from the off. And it's better than no one anyway. But I
guarantee you, Levy ain't thinking I've got to sign a player ready for that game.
No, he's not. No, he's not. But I know Conte is. But anyway, that is your 5 takeaways. Let me know in the comment section below if you agree with our takeaways. If we've missed anything out, let us know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.